In this video, I'll share my LMND Q2 2022 SAY questions. So we're going to look at my SAY questions and why I asked them. What was the reasoning or rationale or my thought behind them? Then also the questions I considered, at least a few of the questions I considered. Lots of you submitted possible questions to me, which was really great, really appreciated. But questions, a few more that I maybe considered but didn't ask and why. And also a bonus question that I'm not submitting, but somebody I know is submitting that you should consider upvoting because it could be pretty hilarious if it gets enough upvotes. So let's jump into it. So my first question, here it is. How aggressively can we expect LMND CAR to be rolled out in terms of availability and customer count? For example, when do you expect it to be available in most states, and specifically California, Texas, and New York? And approximately how many CAR customers could we expect you to have 12 months from now? And actually, I asked a very similar question on the Q4 2021 call and got an answer by Daniel. And where I asked about the CAR rollout, how immediately would you offer it in every state or every state possible, or do you plan to roll it out more conservatively, slowly, and why? And he gave a good answer. He did say we're about a year away from being able to offer LMND CAR to the majority of LMND customers. So you'd kind of expect by early next year, they'll probably be in most states. And then coupled with that, he gives an answer to their sort of how quickly they plan to roll out. They plan, again, to monitor their performance in terms of customer acquisition cost and lifetime value as they roll out CAR. So as they're rolling out a new product, I'm sure they have some caution with how aggressively they roll it out, because if their loss ratios are really not tuned up or their pricing is not tuned up, they could have major problems. So they have to be cautious as they roll out a new product. But jumping back to this question here, so why am I asking this again? It'd just be good, that's a few quarters ago. It'd be good to have an updated answer on that, just because CAR is so important and CAR's rollout is so important. And I also wanted to see when do they expect to be in these three states, because these are three of the biggest states for that they're in and for customers. So those are important to know, but I also really hope they can give us something about approximately how many CAR customers could you expect, say, in 12 months from now. If they give us some value around that, that really tells us how aggressively they expect to roll out CAR and how aggressively they expect to market CAR in the next 12 months, which is really important to sort of see their success and their turnaround from CAR. So that would be really great if they actually gave some kind of number more based on what they've already done in the couple states that they're in right now with CAR, just to have more clarity on how many customers they think they might have, CAR customers, in the next, say, in a year from now. Okay, question 2. I said, given the rate of cash burn and your growing surplus capital requirement, which is as their in-force premium grows, they need to have more capital put aside to cover the in-force premium that's growing. So given the rate of cash burn and that growing rate of surplus capital requirement, do you foresee the need to raise capital in the next few years? If so, are there any concerns in raising money given the decline in stock price? And again, I did ask a very similar question. If you go back to the Q4 2021 call, I asked, how can LMND sustain rapid growth in cash burn for many years? How and approximately when do you see the switch to profitability happening? And he talked about how they've raised $1.5 billion total. They had about $1.1 billion in the bank at that time. They're going to receive some cash from Metromile when the acquisition goes through, which it now has. And he said, we believe we're in a strong cash position. We certainly have access to more cash were we to need it. And he also said, for other reasons that they've outlined, they believe a lot of their heavy investment into foundational products and technologies is drawing to a close. So they should be able to cut back on a lot of their technology R&D costs that they have, but they've built a lot of the foundational core products. And he also said we're probably 6 to 9 months away from peak losses, so we're kind of right close to that. This quarter and the next quarter could be some of the sort of worst losses, and then should expect to see the losses decline. But jumping back to my question, I'm harping on this question and asking again because it's so important. Obviously, if a lot of people like myself have modeled out the next few years, It certainly is possible they may need to raise some more money in the next few years, maybe 2 years from now or so. I mean, given how much the stock has changed in price over the last year, and certainly even since, the end of Q4 last year when the stock was still in the $40 range to now being, in the 20 or even teens. I think this is a worthy question to ask again and just try and get more clarity and more of a feel on how they're feeling and thinking whether they'll need to raise money and how much of a risk that is for the company in the next few years. Third question I asked, I said, at your IPO, you said you thought you could achieve a 13 to 17% EBITDA margin. Do you still see this as feasible long term? So the first two questions I asked were really about the here and now in the next few quarters and the next sort of this binary outcome of Lemonade. Are we going to have a successful outcome or a failed outcome? That's really the pressing questions that every investor should care about right now, and that's why I'm harping on those questions and even feeling like I'm kind of asking the same questions twice or slightly differently. But the third one, I am kind of looking out then to see how optimistic are they for the future and for long term into the future. Are they still sort of seeing the same possible overall operating margin going out into the future, or is that still feasible, or have they kind of tempered their expectations? Have those changed or shifted at all? So it'd be really interesting to hear that. Of course, if their expectations have changed and they're thinking, maybe we'll get to 10% now, it maybe even tells us a little bit about how certain they feel about their even success of getting to profitability at all and becoming successful. That sort of key question. It ties back into that. So that's my third question there. And again, these are my three questions. If you think they are worthy of your upvote, please go ahead and give them an upvote on the SAY platform so we can hear these at the earnings during the earnings call. A couple questions I did not ask about, which would be interesting to hear about, is there reinsurance plans going into the future? I mean, I'm sort of seeing in my own model, like maybe in the later part of this decade, they would start to trim back the amount of reinsurance they would have and slowly start to reduce that over time as their amount of money that they have on hand grows. That's an interesting question, but not a pressing enough question to sort of the existential questions around the company, whether they'll succeed or fail, which are much more important to harp on. Also, an AI or Analyst Day, some people asking about this, and also tied in with this, whether they would ever release their loss ratios on a product-by-product basis, sort of showing them over time so you can see as a product matures whether the loss ratios are dropping. Because I did kind of ask about this AI and Analyst Day, I think that's a really important question, would be really helpful. Planning to do a quick video that I'm predicting. I think Lemonade will do an Analyst or AI Day probably in the next year or so. My guess is because, a couple of reasons. I asked this question previously in the Q1 call or the Q1 SAY questions. I had a couple questions. I said, would you release ratios on a loss ratios on a product by product basis? It would give more granularity to investors and give confidence that Lemonade's underwriting and AI can be an advantage as the products mature. And I also said, would you ever do an AI investor day? As your AI systems are a big part of Lemonade bull case, it would give great confidence to long-term investors to see more under the hood details and metrics that could help attract AI engineering talent. And this one didn't specifically answer. This one did, but he kind of answered both in this answer. So we'll jump into that. I think that's a fair question. And he said, I do expect we will hold an Analyst Day before too long with a view to sharing a lot more information, both about our AI and about our byproduct loss ratios and perhaps cohort loss ratios. I did decide not to ask that because I do assume they might do an Analyst Day, I'm going to guess in the next year to year and a half. Just as a way to, if they need to raise money, maybe down the road, a couple years from now, they're going to want to try and do everything they can to spotlight why they are in a great investment, show more of the under the hood details to investors so that investors have more confidence and they could actually rally their stock potentially before they need to raise money. So I think that may come, and that's why I did not bother to ask. And there's going to be one bonus question. I know a guy I've chatted a lot with on Twitter about Lemonade, a lot of back and forth discussion with a lot of some really great minds there, but I know he's going to be asking this question for fun. He says, does Shy ever get hot under that paper bag? So feel free to upvote that one. I know I'm going to give that an upvote because that would be very, very funny if that got asked or even trended near the top questions. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of these questions. Make sure to upvote the ones you think, again, are worthy of upvoting, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, it's in the bag.